President of the League of Women Voters of Larchmont, Mamaroneck. To our candidates and our audience and our viewers at home, we welcome you to the Village of Larchmont Candidates Forum 2012, sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Larchmont, Mamaroneck, where we will hear tonight from Ann McAndrews, Marlene Colbert, and Peter Finelli. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization. It neither supports nor opposes any candidate. Our mission is to encourage informed and active participation of people in all levels of government. I would like to introduce Carolyn Pomerantz on our board, who's going to be our timekeeper, and I would like to introduce Alice Pernick, who is a board member who will be hosting tonight's forum. Alice?
Thank you, Beth. Welcome, and thank you for coming to this evening's Candidates Forum. I'm Alice Pernick. I'm the League of Women Voters Vice President in charge of debates. And tonight we will be hearing from three candidates, as Beth said. Ann McAndrews is a candidate for the Village of Larchmont Mayor. Marlene Colbert and Peter Finelli are running to fill the two trustee positions. All three candidates will appear on the ballot on the Democratic line. Our forum tonight will begin with brief introductory statements by each candidate, followed by a question and answer period. The first few questions will be from the League of Women Voters. After that, if any audience member wishes to pose questions, they may do so. And depending on the time, there will be further questions from the League. Questions may be asked to all candidates or specifically addressed to particular candidates. And then finally, the candidates will make a closing statement. I urge all Larchmont residents to get out and vote. Election day for these local Larchmont elections will be on Tuesday, March 20th, and the polls will be open from 6 a.m. until 9 p.m. I want to thank the members of the Larchmont Mamaroneck League of Women Voters who have helped give us this opportunity tonight to learn more about the candidates and the issues. I also want to thank LMC-TV for their live broadcast and any other members of the press who are covering this event. I particularly want to thank Carolyn Pomerantz for serving as our timekeeper. And a special thanks goes to all the candidates who are appearing here this evening. And if anybody's got cell phones on, now would be a great time to turn them off. And without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to the candidates for their introductory statements. The first statement will be from Mr. Finelli, then from Ms. Colbert, and then finally from Ms. McAndrews. So, Mr. Finelli.
Good evening. Can we all say good evening to each other?
Good evening.
I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for arranging this gathering. My name is Peter Finelli. I'm a lifelong resident of Larchmont, and I'm very happy to be here with you as an incumbent trustee. I would like to thank the Mayor, Josh Mandel, for appointing me to this position. I'm deeply honored and will serve to the best of my ability. As many of you know, my nickname is Bubba, a name lovingly received as a freshman at Mamaroneck High School in 1973. In 1977, I became president of Mamaroneck High School student body. That year, I learned a lot. I learned about giving, doing, listening, and motivating. I learned to give of myself and the importance of helping others. I still get great joy out of volunteering my time for this wonderful community. After graduating from MHS, I received my BFA in theatrical lighting design from SUNY Purchase. Right out of college, I started a company called United Stage Associates, which specializes in corporate theater and the performing arts. As in my volunteer work, we see the projects from conception to conclusion. In 1990, I married my loving wife, Teresa. We have lived as one ever since. We have three wonderful children, Michelle, Peter, and Gianna. I'm very active in the Larchmont community. I'm a volunteer firefighter here in the village, and Teresa teaches religious education. We both work with St. Augustine's Church and have volunteered our services for a variety of events. In the last few years, I've spent much of my volunteer time as a member of the Recreation Committee. I was the chairman of Facilities and Project Maintenance Committee here in the village. My big projects coming up, when elected, will be the Palm Avenue Streetscape, which is just getting underway. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Colbert.
I also would like to thank the League for giving us this opportunity. I have been a volunteer in Larchmont for the 45 years in which I've lived here with my family, and I consider these years as my graduate education. In addition to working hard for the village, I've learned a great deal in the 10 years that I've been on the village board. My passion on the board has been trying to green the village of Larchmont. Before I was elected, I worked with and was president of the League of Women Voters at the time when clean air and clean water were the big issues before Congress. In the early 1990s, I helped to preserve David's Island, and I served on the 2020 committee here in Larchmont. The committee urged the opening of the back of Flint Park to the water, and we now have a wonderful nature trail along the inlet of Long Island Sound. I was also appointed to the Westchester County Global Warming Task Force. For the past several years, I've been working with a wonderful group of people on the Larchmont Committee on the Environment. The village board recently adopted the Climate Action Plan prepared by the committee. The plan set a goal of reducing overall greenhouse gas emissions from the municipal operations by 20% below the 2005 levels by 2015. We now have solar panels on top of the DPW building and can power our electric vehicles. The plan is available online. Over the past years, we've passed laws prohibiting gas blowers during certain months. We've passed an anti-idling law when the ambient temperature is above 40 degrees. Wherever and whenever possible, we've eliminated the use of pesticides in village parks and on playing fields. Each year since 2009, we've held public education opportunities, including our Sustainability Expo in 2020, and our latest offering is the Green Screen Film Festival, which continues Saturday, Sunday, and Monday of this week. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. McAndrews.
Good evening. My name is Ann McAndrews, and I'm running for mayor, and I'm running unopposed. Now, that's new for a non-incumbent in the village of Larchmont. So I want to tell you why you should feel confident that I can do the job. First of all, I've been in the wings for years. I've served 5 terms as a trustee. That's a total of 10 years. And I've been deputy mayor twice under 2 different mayors. I've been liaison to just about every committee in this village, and I won't give you the list. I started my civic experience with the town on the zoning board. I was a member of the planning board here for years. And finally, as far as experience is concerned, I served as voting action chair for the League of Women Voters and president of the Larchmont Mamaroneck League of Women Voters. So with all this experience, what have I accomplished? Well, I'll tell you quite honestly, it was that sense of frustration in not finishing certain projects that made me accept the offer to run for mayor. The most important project is the Palmer Avenue streetscape. And I see in our audience the man who started that, that's Trustee Ned Benton. We started this project way back in 2001. So I know the village, I work well with people, I feel I have the confidence of the administration staff in the village to do the job, and I look forward to some very challenging questions that are soon to come before this village. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to start with a question that I think is probably on the minds of a lot of the residents of Larchmont, and that has to do with the revaluation that is going on in the town of Mamaroneck. The town of Mamaroneck is now in the process of conducting a property revaluation in order to update the property tax rolls and bring down the cost of defending certiorari's and to distribute the tax burden more fairly among property owners. This is a question for all of you. Should the village of Larchmont adopt the new assessed values that result from the town's revaluation process? And if not, should the village undertake its own reassessment? So I will start with you, Ms. McAndrews.
How about you betcha? Be the fast answer. I know quite a bit about this because I also cut my teeth in about 1996 through 97 when I was a member of the town reval committee when we first looked at this problem way back then, because there has not been a reval of the town of Mamaroneck since 1968. And I just couldn't figure out why that hadn't happened. And it hadn't happened in large measure because part of the village of Mamaroneck is in the town of Rye. Since then, the town of Rye has reassessed, and so it's much easier for the town of Mamaroneck to reassess, therefore getting those portions of the village of Mamaroneck in both towns to be evenly reassessed. Over the years, there has been unfairness creeping into the system. And the major reason for a reval is equity. The values of different homes have changed. And we, in many ways, through different CERT actions and through different actions, through the Board of Reassessment, both in the town and the village, have brought many of these values into sync. We have lost our assessment value for the whole village has actually gone down this past year, and we have several other CERT actions before us. So we are faced with an unfair system, and I am totally in favor of the reval, which I believe this village would accept.
I think that the saddest day for a lot of us was when Governor Pataki vetoed the proposal to revalue the entire county of Westchester, because clearly that would have been, I think, the fairest opportunity for everybody to be revalued at the same time, because as many of you know, this is a hot potato politically, and that's another of the reasons that it often hasn't been accomplished. I think revaluation is something that should happen, absolutely, because approximately, according to the wisdom, 1/3 of the people's houses are undervalued, 1/3 are overvalued, and 1/3 will remain the same. I think the significant issue when it comes to revaluation is that everyone feel that it has been done fairly. I think if there's a sense that this hasn't been fair, that's when you have terrible problems. So I think it behooves the town of Mamaroneck and the people that they've hired to do this revaluation to the best of their ability to make sure that people have the sense that it is being handled in an appropriate and fair way.
I have to agree with both candidates. It should be a county-wide reevaluation, in my opinion. I find it to be actually unfair that the village of Larchmont and the town of Mamaroneck are sort of being, singled out to be reevaluated. It is something that's going to happen. It is good that it gets done, but I think really that everybody needs to jump in on this, and it needs to be a county-wide reevaluation. Thank you.
This question is for Ms. Colbert about affordable housing. A project to develop 46 units of affordable housing consisting of 1-, 2-, and 3-bedroom units for sale near Palmer Avenue has received village approval. What is the status and timeline of this project, and what steps has the village taken to minimize the impacts of the project on noise levels, traffic, and school class sizes?
I would like to say that the affordable housing project that's currently before our planning board should be understood in the sense that it really is a foot away from the village board. It is not our project. It is a county project. Our aim, when and if it's built, is to make it the best affordable housing in the county. And obviously, but we are really not, since there hasn't even been a shovel in the ground, we have not had an opportunity to even really have a say on it. As a matter of fact, we have been prevented from having a say on it. The planning board, when the original plans came into effect, and that was the Esposito project before it was affordable housing, the planning board established itself as the lead agency, so therefore the village board really was not in a position to make any comments about the plan. I think that we are all eagerly anticipating its completion and having those citizens a vital part of our community. And at this point, I really feel that I, as a village trustee, am not in a position to say any more about it.
I think it makes sense that.
Oh, Mr. Finelli, some of these questions are just,
To single people.
yeah.
But they have a chance to rebut, no?
If you want to add something into your closing statement, you can.
Oh, okay.
But since you are all running unopposed, we're not going to, have everybody answer each question.
Okay.
But Mr. Finelli, again, this is also on affordable housing, though. So do you believe that Larchmont needs to make other changes or pursue other initiatives, such as zoning changes or partnerships with developers near the train station, to increase the number of affordable housing units?
Well, I think for the size of the community, 1 square mile, this first project that's taking place, which is an exciting project, let's see how this goes. Let's not rush into anything, above and beyond this. Let's make this the best housing project in the Westchester County. Let's make it affordable, and let's just see what happens from there. As Marlene had stated, though, we are sort of distant from this, but it is something that is important, I don't believe there's going to be an overcrowding situation. I don't believe the schools are going to be stressed. And I think it's actually going to, everyone's going to blend in this community beautifully.
Okay, this is a question from Ms. McAndrews on flood mitigation. The Westchester County Executive recently announced a $2.3 million grant for flood mitigation in Larchmont, including the improvement of the drainage system in the Pine Brook area. The grant would require a 50% match. Is this a project you expect to pursue? And if so, how will Larchmont be able to put up the matching funds?
Yes, we are going to pursue this, and we're starting right away by seeing what other funds we can get. We're talking to our state officials. We'll probably be talking to federal officials to see if there are any programs out there which will help us meet the 50% grant. $2.3 million, believe it or not, as far as financing is concerned, can only complete a part of the project that our engineers said would be necessary for a complete solution to this problem. And that's caused by the sorry fact that we are at the end of the line of an awful lot of water that comes from other communities than we are on the Sound. So yes, we are going to pursue it. One of the reasons why projects like this stop is that when you're faced with millions and millions of dollars worth of work, it's difficult for a small community like this to actually come up with the money for the match. So we're trying very hard immediately to speak to state and federal officials about other help. The next question is, okay, what about the rest of the money, and how is it going to be spread among the taxpayers in the village of Mamaroneck? Excuse me.
That's a good Freudian slip.
Nice slip. The village of Larchmont. And very simply, the question is, do you have the entire village taxed, or do you have just the area of the flooding taxed? And that's an interesting philosophical question that we'll have to reach sometime in the future.
Okay. At this point, I'd just like to ask if there are any members of the audience that would like to step up to the microphone and pose a question of our candidates. Okay, very well, then that's okay, because that's okay, because I got plenty. Okay, this is a question for Mr. Finelli. The three of you are running unopposed, and it's been a long while since Larchmont has had a contested election, and you have said that you want to use your position to encourage volunteerism in the community. So how would you motivate people to participate more in government and serve on village committees and boards, and even just to come out and vote?
I think there needs to be an awareness campaign. I don't think the public realizes how much opportunity there is for them to get involved. Local government, coaching, religious education. There's so much out there that a lot of people don't do. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of good volunteers in this community, and everybody does lend a hand. But we can all do just a little bit more. It seems like once your kid leaves that school or graduates from that area, they sort of wave goodbye as well, which is understandable. I mean, I've been coaching Little League and the LMBA for over 10 years. My kids have sort of gone through the system, but they always ask you back because, I don't want to say cream rises to the top, but you know what's going on, and you can help out the younger coaches, succeed. Here in the village, there's lots of opportunity for a lot of people to do many different things. There's lots of committees, lots of different organizations that are all looking for help. The Beautification Committee, Recreation Committee, the Arts Committee, the Budget Committee. So there's something here for everybody. How do we make them aware? We just need to let them know about it. We have a saying that if your name's not on the roster, you're not playing ball, which means that if they don't know you're out there, how are they going to choose you? So yes, step up, get involved, come on down. There's lots of stuff to do, and it's a lot of fun. You're going to really enjoy yourself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Colbert, this is a question that you touched on in your opening statement, which has to do with the Committee on the Environment's Climate Action Plan and the goal to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 20%. You spoke a little bit about how the village is going to reach this goal, and I was wondering if you could elaborate, but also tell us how will the changes be funded?
Well, you know, actually, and I didn't bring the report with me, so I'm sorry, I don't have all the figures in my head, but actually, we are at least halfway to our goal of 20% by 2015. We've actually done a wonderful job. The last thing that happened, for example, was that the lighting in the firehouse has been changed to LEDs. Some of these are within the projects of work that you're going to do anyway, and it doesn't require a huge amount of money. Ann McAndrews actually was responsible for helping us to get the solar panels on top of the DPW building. And we have one electric vehicle, and another one, I believe, is on its way. And those are powered, for example, by what's generated from that from the solar panels on top of the DPW building. We have changed our vehicle, the fleet. Some of the cars that have been changed, the biggest gas guzzlers are no longer being bought, so that's a big change. You know, wherever there's an opportunity, we've been looking. Unfortunately, we did not receive a grant we wanted for LED lights, traffic lights, but there are opportunities. One of the difficulties, you know, the County of Westchester, for example, I think by 2050 had a very ambitious goal. In a very small village, there are only so many economies and that you can actually achieve. Obviously, the next important effort might be for the Committee on the Environment is we are basically doing the government usage, the buildings, the library, you know, the things that we can control. But the next thing is an education campaign for people in the village and for all of us to reduce our carbon footprint and become more sustainable. That is a more difficult project, but that could be the next thing.
Can I just ask, how were these solar panels funded?
They were funded with a grant from, was it NIPA or NIPERG? I can't even, not NIPERG, NIPA or?
It was NIPA.
It was NIPA. It was a grant from NIPA. And actually, the problem with a lot of these things is they're fairly expensive. And the payback period is a long time. And without that grant, I'm not sure that we would have been able to do it. So one of the things I think that many of us believe is, you know, not even Larchmont, but there is a huge role for the federal government, the state government, to help make opportunities possible for villages like ours and communities like ours to do the kind of things that we do and to encourage citizens to do things. Obviously, people are interested in doing those things if there are tax breaks available. And I think that's something that people like us have been pushing for. Obviously, not everyone agrees, and that's where some of the conflict comes in.
Thank you. Ms. McAndrews, in the past, you've called for Larchmont to hire a professional village administrator. And so what is your current view? How much would it cost to employ an administrator, and how would you propose to pay for it? And also, would such a move require additional personnel, such as a secretary or assistant, to support this administrator, and how would that additional cost be paid for?
Yes, I will work towards a real evaluation of different types of professional management for this village. We have a $13 to $16 million annual budget, depending if you want to include the library and the water fund. And it's run by volunteers such as me and the board on a volunteer basis. We are the only jurisdiction in Westchester without professional management. We've been mentioning grants. I found that grant for the solar panels by mistake. Professional administrators look at grant opportunities all the time. And if you could see the way other communities cobble together grants and get things done, and if you saw the amount of effort that we put in for a $39,000 grant request for LED lights for our traffic lights, and we were turned down because we are in competition with all those other jurisdictions for those funds. You need somebody who knows how to do that. That's become an essential part of local government, is grantmanship plus basic management practices. How are we going to pay for it? I could almost guarantee you that we could have the salary paid back in grants within a couple of years. Now, would that person need additional staff? I'm not so sure. We're a small jurisdiction. We have 6,000 people in a square mile, but we have a large budget. I the way I'm presently thinking, I don't think so. But if that is necessary, we do have staff here in place. We have clerical staff here in place, and maybe those responsibilities could extend to the secretarial staff for a village administrator.
Thank you. Ms. Colbert, this question is for you. Has the village taken any action in connection with the French-American school's plans to relocate to White Plains in terms of marketing that space to other schools, or are there any other plans for that location? And how will the school leaving affect taxes?
Well, first of all, we have, that's really not even in our jurisdiction, so in a sense, except the fact that they physically are here. They haven't talked to us about it, at least not to the board. Maybe they've talked to some people in the village. But my understanding, and I may not be right, is that St. Augustine's actually is not going to close, that FASNY is going to keep that location. Maybe down the road when everybody goes, but my understanding was at this present moment, the FASNY Larchmont was actually going to remain. So that's the first thing. Secondly, that building belongs to St. Augustine's, so it really isn't in our purview, I don't think, to decide what should happen to it. So that's, I think, the most I can say about that.
And the effect on the taxes?
Well, the effect on the taxes, it doesn't pay taxes now. The building is the church, and the French-American school is an educational activity, so we don't get taxes from it now, so I don't think it's going to affect our taxes. I think that the effect will be that we have a lovely French community, and we hope we don't lose them.
Thank you. Ms. McAndrews, this is for you. Recent administrations have eliminated the mailed newsletters that were once sent to all village residents 3 to 4 times a year. Televised board meetings have been reduced to 1 per month, where previously there were 2 in most months. Do you believe that residents are getting sufficient information about the activities of their village government? If not, what do you propose to do about it, and do you support televising work sessions, as is now the practice with the school district?
The newsletters just became too expensive, simply too expensive to mail. Just to give you a quick example, without the last change, but to mail a simple postcard was 29 cents, first-class mail. And yes, we did have breaks for, carrier sorted and governmental rates and all of that, but it just became a very expensive way to do things. We now have a terrific website. It has been recently renovated, and if you did a survey of this community as to how many families have access to the web, I think you'd be over 100%. And it's a matter of letting the people know that the website is available, and we'll tell you absolutely everything you'd ever want to know about the village, and we'll give you links to anything beyond the village that you would be interested in if you start at the village first. We have all our permits can be downloaded online. And as to the once-a-month public hearings, yes, those were condensed into 1 per month. And that was because of the tremendous amount of effort that it takes to put together a public hearing in and of itself. We do have weekly work sessions, and anybody and everybody is welcome to it. I haven't decided yet if we would have other sessions. For example, we had sessions on Saturday mornings for a while for anyone who just wanted to come who couldn't come during the work week in the evening. I haven't decided about that yet. There was one other part to your question, which I forget.
Well, I see your time.
But I'm done.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Finelli, this question was sent to me by a Larchmont resident wanting to know, do you favor putting parking meters up in town? And will there be any, would there be any significant income expected from such a change?
Well, I'm against the actual meter in terms of having a pole with something you feed quarters into. I could entertain the thought of one of the boxes where you go and you get a little time card and you put that on your windshield. I'm not interested in clutter. In fact, I'm against any sort of clutter that we might be putting into the village. So I'm against them. I'm against the meters. In terms of the revenue, I know there's been some research done on it. There is some money to be made with meters. I don't think it's something that's going to happen soon, but I'm not against it.
Thank you. This is a question for all of you, also along the lines of revenue. Given the rising costs of health benefits and pensions, along with the decline of property values and the commercial base, and the 2% tax cap, how do you propose to generate more income for the village? Mr. Finelli, would you like to start?
Well,
with that one?
then you're going to probably need those meters.
Crank them up.
I mean, and that's a tricky question. I mean, so yes, you need to find other ways to create revenue. Now, I must say the current mayor, Josh Mandel, has done a great job negotiating with, the DPW, the fire department, the police department, and just it couldn't have been done any better. They've reached a cap. They've reached a happy place. I want to say for the first time in a while, it seems like Village Hall, everybody's churning together. We all seem to be on the same page here, which is an exciting time for the volunteers as well as the paid staff. So the negotiations have been done. We're in good fiscal shape. Other ways to get revenues? Yeah, I mean, the parking meter could become something real. But all in all, Larchmont Village is looking really good.
Okay.
I can really only echo what Bubba has said, and that we are in a very fortunate position in this village at this moment, because our people who work for us have understood the difficult financial times, and they and we have worked together, and it really is a credit to the current mayor, who has done a remarkable job. I think in a sense we are fortunate that we don't have parking meters, because should things become critical, there is that opportunity that we still have to go to, and many people have already gone there, so they can't do that. I would like to just say for myself, and this is my own view, I am not in favor of the 2% cap. I think it was a terrible idea to put in a 2% cap without changing pensions and benefits and all the things that go with it, because it's put not so much the village, but the school district, which has to vote on a budget, in a terrible position. And, you get to 2% of your budget with pensions and benefits and health care and whatever, before you ever turn around. So I think that's something that the state legislature is going to have a very hard look at.
Ms. McAndrews?
We'd like you all to go over to Lord Taylor, spend a lot of money, because we share in the sales taxes of Lord and Taylor, but not anything in New Rochelle or White Plains, and that is because of the way the tax law for sales tax is established, and I'm not kidding. There's a local portion to your sales tax. For the cities, they keep it. For villages and towns, it goes into a pool, and it's paid out per capita. It's great unfairness, but at least you can help in your own way. The mortgage recording tax. Well, I don't have to tell you that the amount of sales of houses has dropped. I don't have to tell you how the income generated by our savings accounts and our CDs, which we have in certain banks, has dropped like a rock. And when you're faced with things such as for our pension costs, between our budget for 11-12 and what the state will be sending us a bill for 12-13, there is a 17% increase for the employees' retirement system and a 20% increase from last year to this year in the police and fire retirement system. So we are in a situation of having to find more revenue, and besides keeping your books out longer and things like that, not returning CDs, we have to think of efficiencies. Because of the cap, which is a cap not on your tax bill or on my tax bill, it's a cap on the overall tax levy with all sorts of exclusions and permeations. So I really think that we have to think, number one, of increasing revenue by being smart about how our services are rendered, And let me just tell you of something that I have been thinking about. I would like to see the permits that are granted to the workmen. Let's say an electrician, the plumbers who have to come in and get building permits. We should have a system whereby they can not have to leave their job during the work week, during the work day, to come here to fill out a piece of paper for a permit, but be able to do it all online when they're not on the job, and thereby be able to pay this village for that service. I would like to see the real estate brokers be able to check all our records, have them all scanned, have them all available online, have all the title abstract workers who have to search every time a house is bought and sold, to have all those resources here online so that they can use them, but they have to pay for the service. And the service will not be $5 a year or anything. The service will be based upon how important it is to them. And therefore, I think we could get some additional revenue because we're saving them time.
Thank you. Here's a question for all of you. And I'm sure you all know this question is coming. It's about consolidation of services. The initiatives outlined in the most recent consolidation report have stalled under previous administrations. They called for a combined Larchmont-Mamaroneck Town Detective Division, among other things. Apart from programs already established, what new consolidation initiatives would you pursue, and what services would you be opposed to sharing? We'll start with Mrs. Goldberg.
You know, this has been a topic of conversation since I arrived in town, and I'm surprised you haven't asked us about dissolution and consolidation, but I guess we can discuss that within this question. Obviously, in terms of consolidation, what happens in the town of Rye and with the dissolution study will have a tremendous ripple effect on all of the rest of us. So I think that is the next conversation to come. Right now, I think Larchmont's in the fortunate position that we share library services with the unincorporated area, and we share garbage services with the unincorporated area. I think that am one of those people who has actually come sort of full circle. I came to town, I was president of the league, I was all for consolidation, bringing the town of, that piece of Mamaroneck from the town of Rye into the town of Mamaroneck, and we would be one happy family. Well, the fact that in 45 years nothing happened indicates to me that it's not so simple, and we also have rather different psyches. The village of Mamaroneck, for example, has an all-volunteer fire department. How do you incorporate a community when one part has an all-volunteer fire and the others have different forms of combined services? So I think it's a tricky question of how you actually do this. And where I was once all in favor of all of us consolidating, having seen the difficulties, I really sat back and said, I'm not sure this is such a great idea, and particularly for the village of Larchmont. And I'm very curious to see how we work with this dissolution question and see what we, the village of Larchmont, will actually do.
Ms. McAndrews, do you want to?
Can you just repeat? You had a couple of subparts there.
Sure. Okay. Well, the gist of it was that we want to know, apart from programs already established, what new consolidation initiatives would you pursue, and which services would you be opposed to sharing?
I was active for many years in LSWIC. LSWIC means Long Island Sound Watershed Intermunicipal Consortium. Did I get that right?
Something like that.
Something like that. And it has, depending upon how you count, it involves roughly 12 communities. And we got together for years working on, number one, state legislation that would allow us, under home rule, to cooperate with each other about stormwater. And it was simply stormwater that we started with. Then we had the floods in Mamaroneck, and the floods here, and the floods everywhere. And so we shifted to flood mitigation as a priority. It's a very tough thing to do, to get that many communities together to decide on capital projects for stormwater management. But I haven't given up yet. And I think if we could cooperate through intermunicipal agreements with the town of Mamaroneck and the city of Rye, and the village of Mamaroneck, from whom all water flows through us, and we have our own share, obviously, for large projects, one of which is that Pine Brook question that came up before. All that water starts at Beachmont Lake up in New Rochelle. So a very real way is to share services and share initiatives, but not necessarily share government. People like the feeling that they have control over their own local government. And it's not the same as sharing services, especially when you can set up cooperative agreements that cooperate in the management and the funding of large projects.
Mr. Finelli?
I'm against shared services. I like the fact that Larchmont has their own police department, fire department. I know that if there's a crisis, someone is here within a few moments. That to me helps me sleep at night. I think that makes Larchmont very attractive. I like that when I'm walking down the street, I do see police cars often. When I'm in the town of Mamaroneck, it's 3 times the size of Larchmont. I may not see an officer for a while. Here, there seems to be officers everywhere, which is very comforting. In terms of the DPW, those services are shared. That works out well. So I'm against shared services in terms of fire and police because I like the comfort of knowing that they're here in my neighborhood. In terms of sharing other items, we'd have to do some more research on that, but it's been going on forever. And just from past administrations saying nothing's really been able to be shared through the years. I think that what Ann had stated about the waterways, that's got some potential there. But I think Mamaroneck likes being Mamaroneck. I think Larchmont likes being Larchmont. So I'm against it.
Thank you. Mrs. Colbert, this is a question for you. I actually had 2 residents raise this question to me, including one who gave nearby Willow Street as an example of a street.
What?
An example of Willow Street, which I think is
Willow Avenue?
Willow Avenue. I live in Mamaroneck.
It's okay.
As an example of a street that's in need of maintenance. And so the question is, in this time of budget constraints, how can the village most efficiently maintain its streets, trees, and sidewalks?
Well, you know, I think there are several different questions. I think the streets are an issue. The streets are, we have a sort of we get what's called CHIPS money. It's a certain amount of money that comes to us from the state and federal government, to which we add some every year. But basically, I'll be very honest, we are sort of on a 20-year cycle of repairing the streets. And the DPW basically tries to do the worst ones. Even though you're on some sort of a cycle, they try to do the worst ones, the ones that get the heaviest use. It's not a simple issue, and I tell you, it is not helped by the fact that Con Edison comes in and opens up the streets, that builders come in and open up the streets. So I don't have a quick answer for you for how you take care of the streets. When you talk about trees, I actually think we've done an extraordinary job in terms of maintaining the trees in our village. We're very careful about the ones that are getting old, and diseased, taking them down and planting new trees. That is again a problem. Con Edison now does not want you to plant canopy trees under their wires, and if they do, you can see the way they've come and chopped these V's on every tree. So what we've tried to do is be careful about planting lower trees on the side of the street with wires, and the canopy trees. My aim, and I think the aim of everybody on this board, has always been that if you come back in 100 years, you will see the same beautiful canopy trees in this village. And that's something that I think the citizens have to recognize, that when the Parks and Trees Committee comes and says, we'd like to put a tree in front of your house, and we think this is a great location for a canopy tree, that the homeowners don't say, well, we really don't want a tree in our front yard, you know, or shading our lawn. I think that's a challenge to the Parks and Trees, and they're also all volunteers.
Ms. McAndrews, this is a question for you. At a recent League of Women Voters event, the outgoing mayor, Josh Mandel, suggested that one way to control the pension and health benefit costs that are mandated would be to contract for services rather than hiring additional municipal employees. Do you believe that this is a viable option for the village? And if so, what types of services do you think would lend themselves to contracting?
I think I may have brought that up myself because I was up at a county facility in a state building, state police up in Hawthorne, and saw that many of the employees, including the guard at the front door, was from a private security service, and that all the people looking at those large television screens and monitor traffic all the way up to Beacon and beyond were all from a private company. And I was quite surprised at that. We have such an extraordinarily small staff in this village that it would be foolhardy to try to think of contracting out some of the jobs. With, you know, 3 women in this office, 2 in one office, 1 in the other. But I think for larger government entities, this has become necessary because of the structure of employee benefits, which, as I mentioned before, has become crushing because of the imperative by the state that the $125 billion fund, that is the New York State Employees Pension Fund, generate 8% out per year. And if it doesn't meet that, we get a bill. And we get a bill for the difference. And we have gone from $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year to hundreds of thousands of dollars per year for this village for pension costs. It's an unsustainable model. And I really think if you solve the pension with sort of a blend, not strictly a 401k, because we all look at our own and see the problems that that causes, and we're sort of attached to Wall Street that way, but have a blend of a type of plan that we have now with one that the employee would have control over and loosen the chains that we have to this 8% requirement of a return every year in the state pension funds, and I think things would be much easier, and we wouldn't have to look at private vendors for government work.
Thank you. Mr. Finelli, what efforts will you make to ensure that Larchmont's business districts are occupied and vibrant?
Well, I think it all starts with the streetscape. It's something where that if you make it attractive for a business owner to open his business, he comes down, he sees that the sidewalks are nice, the lighting is good, it's a community affair where everybody's comfortable being there, and he just stands out in front of his prospective store and he says, you know, this looks like someplace I want to open up business. The people are nice. So really, I want to say the streetscape has a lot to do with it. If you make it sort of environmentally friendly and conducive to come to, then I think stores will want to open up their shops there, because what's going to happen is you're going to create a lot of foot traffic. And once you get the foot traffic, hopefully people are going to shop there. Now, don't get me wrong, it's very important what type of store you put there. Larchmont is a fickle crowd. You know, they're going to want what they want. And if you're not providing that, you're not going to last. So, but in terms of getting the streetscapes under control and making those happen, I think that's going to be a big positive into making store owners want to open up shop in the village of Larchmont.
Thank you. Okay, this is a question for everybody. In your opinion, what is the biggest challenge facing Larchmont, and how would you address it? So, Mr. Finelli, would you like to start with that one?
I think the biggest problem with facing Larchmont is just trying to keep Larchmont, Larchmont. We've talked about that in meetings. People that move to Larchmont love this village because it has everything that they want. Good schools, safe communities, close commute to Manhattan, you know, great parks, waterfront. Keeping that accessible to the families that are here, young and old, is going to be a challenge. So how do you do that? That's going to be something that I think the board's going to be working on for quite a while. But that's all I have to say.
Okay. Ms. McAndrews?
Dovetailing to what was just said so well. I've described this village as a lovely old house, full of charm, and capable of great surprises. We've got an infrastructure that is over 100 years old. We have some sidewalks that I think are about that old, which, by the way, if anyone wants a new sidewalk, I believe the village will contribute 60% of the cost of a new sidewalk.
I think it's the other way around. I think it's the other
40% or 60%. Anyway, a lot. The problems that I mentioned from the outside of the financial burdens put on our budget, and from the inside of increased capital needs, is, I think, going to be the real challenge. I will hope that our assessed values will stop slipping from the year before, even with reval. That would give us something solid to work on when we have to figure out how we're going to be doing for this tax levy cap. I should tell you that we're well below the cap, and that this cap, believe it or not, even has a carryover, which we hope we won't need in the future. I would say that that's the challenge, to keep what we have in this lovely old house on the Sound, and at the same time be aware of the tremendous financial stresses coming from these costs, from the mandated costs from the outside. That's going to be, I think, our biggest challenge.
Thank you. Ms. Colbert?
We all sound like one record, because here's a sentence that I was going to read to you for my closing statement, which would say, "Ask my major aim, it's to keep Larchmont, Larchmont. This is an extraordinary community, and I see our task as maintaining the services residents have come to expect, with the ability to pay so that young families can move to town and senior citizens can stay in their homes after their children graduate from high school."
Thank you. I have one final question, and then we'll go to our closing statements. This is also for everybody. What can be done to eliminate the excessive cost and delay to property owners who are required to navigate the village's architectural review board, planning board, and zoning board when making changes in their property? And how can these necessary reviews be streamlined? And I'll open up to anybody who would like to answer that.
We have some laws on the books that are going to be reviewed for exactly that reason. Unfortunately, building inspectors often have to say no, and planning boards often have to say no, and zoning boards often have to say no, and that goes for commercial and residential properties. So the streamlining is very real. There may be a potential that we were talking about a little while ago about having a sit-down conference for 3 different boards at one time. That's a real possibility. And also being able to have the applicant know really what the zigs and zags of the permitting process are. I think a first initiative, the law does have in the planning a requirement to come before the board for sort of an initial discussion of the issue, but that takes a month. And then how much longer is it going to take the applicant to prepare all the papers and to have it in time for the following month? Well, that is usually 2 months later. The time that it takes is too long, and the cost becomes very high. And it's a priority with me to make it as streamlined as possible, but not necessarily giving everybody what they want, because that's not the process.
Mr. Finale, would you like to address that?
Well, I have to agree with Ann, and I know that in the last few meetings we've discussed on ways to streamline the whole process, because I think as a new homeowner, if you're coming into this community, it's very frustrating. You know, you're excited about moving to Larchmont, you're excited about getting things started, and all of a sudden you hit sort of this stumbling block, and it's just the due process. This definitely needs to be tightened up, and it needs to be more user-friendly for the new homeowner. So it's being looked at, it's being discussed pretty diligently, and something will take place within the next few months.
I would just, partly to play devil's advocate a little bit, these things are obviously in the pipeline. We've been talking about it. We know where some of the hang-ups are. But I also want to say that we are a community in which we live cheek by jowl, and it's terribly important that when you're doing building, you're doing it with some sort of an eye to your neighbors and being a community. And I think some of the things which we've put into law were trying to prevent some of the egregious problems that occurred in certain places, and all the neighborhood would come out and scream and yell. And so perhaps we became overly vigilant, overly diligent. But I do think that's a two-way street. There's the village trying to accommodate the needs of people who are trying to do work. There's also the need of the people who are living and are your next-door neighbors to maintain the quality of their life to the extent possible. And I think it's a delicate balance.
Thank you. We'll now proceed to the candidates' final statements. Ms. McAndrews, you went last for the opening statements. Perhaps you could go first now.
I've been preparing for this job for many years, even though I didn't know it. And I'm very, very excited about this. I think I have the goodwill of the community, and frankly, I'm very, very excited. I've written down a series of things to say, and I hope I can do it in some kind of order. The idea of the French-American school leaving, I think, is something that would cut out a part of our community, and I will hope that we can keep the French-American school here, if not that, a presence. I can tell you that we have worked, the village has worked with the French-American school on different matters through the years, for example, how the school buses pick up children, etc. And we will continue cooperation with that or any other school that comes in. And we would expect that it would be a school. We don't expect that building to be made into apartments, as so many schools were in the past when the school population dropped. I'm looking forward to the affordable housing that we expect to be breaking ground within the next little while, but I do know that they have got new requests before the planning board, and I was liaison to the planning board when that project began. And I cannot stress the importance of in this community, elected officials do not interfere with the workings of planning and zoning and architectural review. I think that's a really good way to go. I see that my minute is up. I hope it's not the end, that you will be hearing from me in this seat. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for a set of really fabulous questions. It took a lot of effort putting them together. It's deeply appreciated. You made us work tonight, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Finelli, how about you next?
If you haven't been able to tell by now, I have the desire, ability, and commitment to get things done. So Larchmont can continue to be a great place to live, shop, and raise a family. The bottom line is that I think I have the qualities of an ace. What's an ace? An ace is someone with the right attitude, commitment, and enthusiasm. Attitude. When I volunteer my time, I come with the right attitude, and I come to work for you. I'm a doer. Commitment. When I'm elected trustee, I will do this job to the best of my ability. I know what it takes to make things happen within this 1 square mile, and I'm committed to do so. Enthusiasm. I'm involved with this community in so many ways because I love it. It brings me great joy to be part of the team. I want to see Larchmont Village continue to thrive so families can enjoy what I've been privileged to enjoy my whole life. I'm here tonight to ask you for your vote on Election Day, March 20th. I would like to thank the League of Women Voters. And I also want to thank all the volunteers that made this night possible. You're truly an inspiration. Thank you to all of you. I look forward to a great election. Get out and vote, get up and volunteer, and get involved today. And remember, in your own life, be an ace. Thank you.
If you live in a democracy like ours, I believe it is vital to be informed and to be involved. It's easy to live in Larchmont. We have wonderful schools, a waterfront, outstanding recreational opportunities, and a short commute to Manhattan. We also have a board of trustees who serve at no cost to the village, no salary, no benefits. We make the best decisions we can based on the information available to us, the advice of our village staff, and the experts we hire. But an informed electorate is an absolute necessity at every level of government. There are several very important issues before us now. How to handle the Pine Brook flooding. What does dissolution of the town of Rye mean to the residents of the village of Larchmont? What's the meaning of the 2% tax cap and maintaining our aging infrastructure, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I have two closing requests. One is to stay informed about village issues. We have a village website. There are openings on committees and commissions. Your village needs you. Lastly, I request that village residents be good neighbors. Don't make U-turns where not permitted. Don't park in other people's driveways. Don't double park. Don't litter. Recycle. Don't talk on the cell phone or text while driving. Pick up after your dog and dispose of the waste in appropriate places, not on your neighbor's fence post. Ask your gardener not to use leaf blowers from June 1st to September 30th. If you respect the laws of the village and state of New York, it will also be a lesson to your children. Thanks to the League, and the one thing I think that you didn't say at the beginning is that voting will take place in the village center behind the library.
Thank you for adding that. I appreciate that. And thank you for coming tonight and sharing your views with us. And again, I hope everybody will come out and vote on March 20th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.